From the Bethesda acquisition by Microsoft to the enhancements that they are doing over on Sony with Spiderman, there has been so much news within the gaming industry for this past week alone. So we're going to talk about all of it on Free For All Friday. Let's go. It's a great day on the internet, everybody, and welcome to Assemble. I'm Matt. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to go through a bunch of topics when it comes to all of the gaming news and updates. There's so much news and everything to be able to talk about for the last, week and a half? Trying to condense it all. Trying to bring it down a little bit and just gonna give you the highlights. Let's get into it. On the list is really the Bethesda acquisition by Microsoft and Xbox. And do you guys think that with this acquisition and this news, that Bethesda will become, and Bethesda games will become, a pure exclusive to Game Pass down the road? We've heard from Phil Spencer already in this past week when they did announce the $7.5 billion acquisition of Bethesda. And what I'm really wondering about is, where are we going to be at in 2-3 years from now? This is a very monumental bit of news coming out of Microsoft because of what this will do to games and for gamers down the road. Phil Spencer has come out to say about the current contracts that they already have, that Bethesda already has with, Sony and other studios and other partners. They are going to honor all of those contracts in their current state. So what I'm really looking at is, where are we going to be at with Game Pass and Bethesda in those 2 years from now when they are developing the next titles? Part of me thinks that they're just going to immediately go and just put everything on Game Pass for all the new, the new id Studio games, the Bethesda games, and so on. But I start to really wonder if that's really going to be the play. Where there's an opportunity to make even more revenue, in my opinion, is they do allow these games of Bethesda to be on other consoles, to allow them to be on PlayStation. But they can make it very interesting by having certain exclusives on Xbox only. You can only get it here on Xbox. That's a lot of what Microsoft and Phil Spencer try to talk about, is getting people on the ecosystem. And this generation coming up is really about, for Xbox, it's really about trying to get the players onto the service, onto the platform, and give them a reason to get Game Pass indefinitely. That's what the model they're trying to really strive for. And with this acquisition, it's interesting to see if they will just put everything into Bethesda and being only on Game Pass for games like Doom and Fallout and so on. Or do they allow them down the road to be able to say, they're coming out with a new Fallout game, it's going to be on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, but maybe it's not day and date on Sony. Maybe it's on Game Pass first. And then in 6 months or a year, they then allow it to go on PlayStation, where players would have to pay full price for that game at that point. And with console games pricing going up by $10 now, it makes it more and more interesting and a stronger case, in my opinion, for players to be able to grab onto Game Pass because of the value that they're going to get with the Bethesda game. And what a lot of people have been talking about online, and I do really agree with this, guys, is that for players like me, for example, I don't have a ton of time. I got kids. I got the job. I love to game figures, and I'm basically a 9-year-old at heart. But because there's limited time, and for a lot of us, there isn't a lot of money to go around to be able to spend on new games. And when new titles are going to run us, $79, $89, and up and up and up it goes, I haven't had time. I don't have time to jump into a lot of those really great Bethesda titles. I don't get to play in Fallout. I don't grab the new Dooms. I haven't played Doom Eternal because on the list of games, it starts going further and further down. It's something that, I really like to play it, but I'll wait for it to become either free on Sony or Xbox, or I'll just wait for it to become dirt cheap and I really want to play it. But that might be, 2 years after the game releases. And at that point, are we really going back to it? So what makes it really interesting and where it really opens the doors for people like me is having that ability to say, well, it's on Game Pass. I'm paying for this whole service. Yeah, I'm going to play Doom. Like we just saw, Doom Eternal is now on Game Pass. I'm downloading it now because I want to play that game and it's built into my subscription. I'm going to try it out. And that's what it gets a lot of gamers like me is for games like Doom, Dishonored, Fallout, and so on, it gives me a reason to say, you know what, I'm going to download it and I'm going to try it. And I might be pleasantly surprised, and it opens myself up into all of these other titles and to games that I really normally wouldn't try. And if it was on the Sony side, I wouldn't pay for that. I wouldn't pay $89 for the new Bethesda game because it's not something that really grabs me. So this acquisition and this deal, it proves to me that there's going to be really, really monumental shifts. The other big shift that we've seen is, and it kind of goes under the radar a little bit because the talk online and what has been really monopolized right now is the Bethesda deal, which is huge. But the other one that's really, really got me interested and really excited actually is going to be the EA Play being built into Game Pass. So what I did the other month was actually I ended up getting EA Play just for $5 a month, and I'm only doing it for the 1 month because now it's going to be under Game Pass Ultimate. But I ended up getting EA Play because I looked at the titles and it's very much like Game Pass in itself. Yeah, it's a lot of last year's games, their highlights from EA, from last year's sports titles, but I like FIFA and I like NHL, but they're not titles that I would run out and buy. Because I'll play MLB The Show and, any of the Uncharted games, just the top games. Last of Us, I'll buy Forza, and now it's on Game Pass and it has been, so I don't have to pay for that. But I get like the heavy hitter titles. So when I look at things like Need for Speed, NHL, FIFA, Star Wars Battlefront 2. I had Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, and I really liked where they were going with Battlefront 2 and the fixes that they made to it, but then sold the game. I had the hard copy, sold it off. I wasn't playing anymore, but then I get itchy for like, man, I really want to play a Star Wars game again. So then I end up looking at this going, this is an amazing service for casual gamers or people that want to be more exposed to it. And again, it's another play by Microsoft to get more gamers and to really widen the scope of the amount of gamers and the type of gamers that they can attract to their platform. Because you start associating EA sports titles with Xbox. And there's already such a huge base there already that to have EA Play go from $5 a month and now it's just built into my Ultimate subscription, to me, that is a massive win. And you get those demos and you get those trials from EA Play. Now, sure, I wish we could get day and date games from EA that are going to be on there, but I start to wonder if this is the path that not only Microsoft goes down, but maybe the potential for Sony to go down this path as well. Maybe not. And what I mean is, will Sony and Microsoft continue this trend of either acquiring studios for exclusivity, or will they at least partner up with specific studios like a Ubisoft, for example, or EA, or another company, or Activision, for their subscription service to be built into their plan, to their platform. We see them in the past where they dabble with, launch windows exclusive deals with the launch of certain titles. They can only get certain things for Call of Duty on PlayStation, for example. We've seen all of that happen. So there's precedent set for studios working with, Sony and Microsoft to be able to put it all under one roof, or to at least try it out. So I'd be curious what they do in the future, but this really changes the way that gamers go about their games. And the truth is that the exclusive titles and the main titles that we see, and looking at Sony, they're more and more expensive. And it really starts to shape that Sony seems to be very much on the side of it's an exclusive first party premium game experience console, and that's what you're getting into. I'm looking at Spiderman, I'm looking at God of War, I'm looking at these titles as these are the main exclusive titles from Sony, and those are the only ones that I'm going to play. And Xbox, they've got the exclusives, but they've also got all of these other titles that are in this backlog, that backwards compatible, that I really want to be able to experience. And there feels like there's more reason and really there's more value for gamers like me with the limited time to be able to jump into my Xbox and just look at it and go, I've got 200 plus titles that I can actually play. And because there's been so much conversation and so much hype around the consoles and how they're performing and all these acquisitions and moves that are going on from Xbox and the news and non-news of Sony, we had a lot of news and conversation around how these pre-orders went. When we look at the pre-orders that went down for Sony, it was considered a giant mess. All over Twitter, it was absolutely a disaster. The announcements were all mixed up. They announced it a day before. Retailers jumped the gun. They went and they launched all the pre-orders out into the wild for Best Buy and Walmart and Target and so on. And then I ended up waiting for the next day to go, oh, I just see all this in my feed and I didn't even have a shot to be able to get it. And they opened pre-orders again. And even that was just done kind of like, it wasn't really a big thing. They just announced, hey, we're putting out more pre-orders to make them available. Whereas you have on the Microsoft side, pre-orders sold out pretty much instantly. But what was good was that by Microsoft, they actually did a very good job of just listing when it was coming out for pre-orders, what companies, where could you get it for retailers, where could you order them, the times, the dates, everything. So even though both consoles, they had limited supply and limited accessibility for people to go online to be able to get these pre-orders done, I felt like with Microsoft, at least you had a better shot and you had a better opportunity and better window of knowing when this was actually going to happen. And this is what I feel has been the trend for leading up until this launch, is that Microsoft really seems to be doing all of the customer service, customer experience pieces, customers first, gamers first, and going down that path versus what Sony's messaging and information and giving us some clarity onto what these consoles are all about. And I think that the pre-order fumble by Sony and kind of consistency of Microsoft leading up to the launch shows us what these two consoles are really going to represent and what they're going to do for gamers. When I look at the Sony side of things, there's still so many questions. I think a lot of us, and getting feedback from you guys online, we've been really excited about, ray tracing. SSD has been a big thing for everybody going forward into the next gen of consoles. But I can't help but feel like there are so many more questions that I still have about Sony. What does the UI look like? What's the experience of my trophies, and have they updated that? Are we even getting basic things like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon apps built into it? Obviously, more than 99% chance we are, but we haven't had that bit of information. We've seen the trailers for the consoles and the controllers and the accessories, but what does this thing actually look like? I feel like with the consistent updates of Microsoft, we have a very good idea of what we're going to be walking into. And with Sony, are we going to get the same dashboard? Are we going to get the same experience? Is it actually going to be fluid? How is it going to be between, switching between games? This has been a big thing that Microsoft is really announcing and showcasing now, is the ability to switch between multiple games and being able to have them running in the background. That's huge. How many times have we sat there and we're wondering, man, I'm playing Forza and I really just want to jump out right now and I'm going to go play Madden, or I'm going to play Red Dead Redemption. You always want to be able to switch sometimes because, this game isn't really, I'm really not really feeling it. I want to try something else right now. And that slowdown, it's a big first world problem of having to slow down and take disc out and put new disc in, or to be able to go digital and switching between them. But that slowdown matters. And we haven't had that clarity, I feel like, from Sony. There's still more questions that have not been answered. And we are 30-ish days away from a launch of a new console that's running us $500 or more. And game prices are going up. The only thing that we've had news on is going to be the Spiderman and the Remastered, and actually seeing trailers for that just kind of dropped out of nowhere. And we did a whole reacts to that episode, guys. I'll put the link up here above of what that trailer really looked like and our whole breakdown of the gameplay one, as well as the cutscene that they did of the new remastered version of Peter Parker in the Spider-Man game for PS5. So as we're seeing these changes within the Sony side of Spider-Man and them going for a new direction of using ray tracing and better lighting and actually changing the facial animations of the main character, my question to all of you guys was going to be, do you think that we're going to see more of these remasters of previous titles for Sony games specifically? A huge game like Sony's Spider-Man, the Spider-Man PS4 game going to PS5, the Miles Morales game coming out with it for that whole deluxe package. I understand it from Sony's side where they want to be able to really just grab all those gamers. Spider-Man is, their biggest title for the whole generation of PS4. It sold consoles. It outsold everything else. So of course it makes sense to be able to re-release this game. But to re-release it, remaster it not only with, better HDR and better lighting, and we get puddle graphics on the game, but to change the whole facial animations of a character and the main character is huge. If we looked at it from a movie side, it's re-releasing the Spider-Man movies and taking out Tobey Maguire and putting in Tom Holland because they wanted to re-release a remastered version of the movies. Now, some of us might argue that that would be fine. We'd be happy with Tobey gone, Tom Holland, yay. And some of us like the crybaby of Tobey Maguire. Let's not get into that right now. But if you look at it from that side, guys, it's pretty monumental that they are doing this entire remaster of Spider-Man to this degree. And I'm wondering, are we gonna see more of this? Do you think that when we have the announcements of, say, God of War 2, are we going to see a completely remastered, redesigned God of War 1 come out? Do you think that Sony would want to do those types of things down the road? Or is it just a one-off to really, spike a generation going into the fall and going into the next gen? But do you think that they take previous titles that worked really well, Uncharted, for example, and we've seen like the Uncharted collection come out, and we have seen those games get up-resed a little bit more, but do they take it a step further? Do they completely go and try to push a redesign and not changing Nathan Drake himself by any means? But do you think that they change that game and those games to be able to push them out onto PS5? This is what I'm really wondering when I think about, 2-3 years down the road, like we've been talking about today, where Microsoft is really feeling like they're taking an approach of, let's just let the studios do their thing like Bethesda. It's not a situation where Bethesda is going to be, running very tightly under the umbrella of Microsoft. Phil Spencer has made that very clear that he's going to let them run as their own, independent, run them as their own company. They just have the backing, the support, and the push behind by Microsoft. So on their side, I can see that they're trying to just kind of blanket the entire gaming industry with the vastness of titles and the options and the experience options for customers and for gamers to be able to play from, their consoles, their old consoles, their phones now, and being able to just kind of do it anywhere you want. Versus Sony, I think, is taking a much more traditional approach of having these game titles, these specific AAA masterpiece games that we love, like Spider-Man, Uncharted, God of War, all of them. Then they're going to have these amazing, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 experiences for us, and we win. But I can't help but wonder and have some concern and hesitation with Sony of not knowing a lot of the detail, like the UI and like some of the releases that are coming out of the gate. And are we going to see this trend where Sony doesn't have as many games coming out consistently from the first party because they take years to develop? We will wait for them. We'll be excited for them. But with that gap in time, do you think Sony does the approach of, well, we want to release Last of Us 3 as an example, or something that is tied to Naughty Dog in the Last of Us universe? So let's re-release a remastered Last of Us 1 and 2 on PS5, and we've re-rendered a bunch of stuff and up-res and da-da-da. And to me, I get it because it's from, the business side of it. It makes total sense. Why not? Why not let a new crop of fans be able to experience these games on new generation consoles? It looks prettier. Like, we'll play it. I want to play the new Spider-Man. I want to play the remastered Spider-Man to be able to experience the changes that they made. And if they see the success with Spider-Man Remastered, with fans who have platinumed it and 100%ed that game, like me, I have no real reason to play that game again other than I just enjoy Spider-Man. But now they've given me motivation and reasons to buy it again, full price. Yes, with Miles Morales, yay, but to buy that game fully again? It's a bold move by Sony, and I'm interested to see where they go down the road. Now, folks, if you're new to the show, every single Friday we do this free-for-all Friday, and today we're talking obviously all about the games and the next-gen consoles, but we have 3 shows every single week coming at you, plus our reacts videos for things like new movies that come out, like WandaVision, Mandalorian, the Transformers on Netflix that came out, and the new Spider-Man reacts for the gameplay trailers that we just had. We have all of those reacts, so please go check out some of our content, subscribe to the show if you can, if you enjoy this type of stuff, and join the Assemble community. And last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is really get your thoughts and opinions on what excites you about it. What we do on the show is we try to make sure that we keep things positive because there's always going to be bad news, differencing of opinions. You guys will disagree with me, and that's awesome. But what I want to know is what excites you about next gen? What are the features that are really grabbing onto you? Why are you picking Xbox versus Sony? Why are you changing over from one console to the other? Or why are you getting both? Is it just simply because you want to have both for the new generation? Amazing. but are there certain features that you are really grabbing onto that are going to be game changers for you? From a lot of the feedback that I've had online on Twitter, and thank you guys so much for submitting your feedback, has been a lot of conversations around the SSD and being able to have that proprietary SSD. Having faster load times is going to be massive for you guys. People are excited about ray tracing in there and the ability to switch between game titles like on Xbox. And I think for a lot of us, the next generation of games and consoles, it's interesting because we've kind of hit this almost the ceiling of fidelity, of graphical enhancements where they're there, but they're not as, you know, revolutionary as what we've seen in years past, where we go from a Xbox, OG Xbox to a 360 and feeling like, wow, they've completely changed it. I feel like now we're getting to this point where the updates graphically are going to be smaller. So I think that for gamers, what we're seeing for this gen is a lot of what's the cost and is it price effective and price conscious for gamers? And it's going to be experience and ease of use and accessibility. And I think that's very much what we're after, which is really exciting because it changes the conversations for us as gamers to go from this game looks really good, this one doesn't look as good. It changes us to be able to talk about different things about accessibility within the games, the way that certain games allow us to play, to be able to switch between them. Like that's what's going to work for us to have things like Gamepass or PS Plus and being able to have, you know, this huge library of games and having the convenience factor. And convenience and ease of use seems to be the thing that we're going for now. Anyways, guys, that wraps it up for this week on Assemble and for Free For All Friday. Thank you so much for watching and for joining us. What excites you about next gen? We got month to go before the consoles come out. I've got my Series X ready to go. I cannot wait. I'm hopefully going to be able to get my hands on a PS5 because Spider-Man, I have to. But how are you feeling about all of the new content, the new releases, and the new announcements that have been coming out recently from both sides? And how are you feeling about Sony's side of things where they haven't announced as much? And maybe hopefully in the next, you know, week, 10 days, 20 days, we're actually going to see a little bit more from Sony. And I wonder if Microsoft has anything else up their sleeve before we hit that final official release date. Thanks so much for joining us. And as always, thank you guys for assembling with us. See ya.